The first time Clara Bennett held my hand. We were strangers trapped between the 9th and 10th floors, and I was lying to her. I'm not afraid, I told her. The emergency light flickered across her face. Then why are you counting your breaths? The lift kept us for 93 minutes. Our first kiss took 4 months. Saying I loved her took 7 months. Learning that love was not the same as being rescued took longer. My name is Jonah Reed. I design light for rooms other people fill with stories. Clara taught me that darkness is not the same as emptiness, and that holding someone's hand is very different from deciding where they should go. I stepped into the lift at Bellwether House at 7:16 on a Thursday evening. I had carried a heavy case of lighting samples to a review meeting on the 14th floor. I normally took the stairs and called it exercise. It was never about exercise. That evening rain had delayed me. My sister was waiting for dinner, and I chose the lift. The lift stopped at 12. Clara stepped inside with a recorder bag, a paper cup, and a folder pinned beneath her arm. Her dark hair was twisted into a loose knot, several strands already escaping. She shifted left to give my case room and pressed the lobby button. We exchanged the automatic smile of two people who expected to share less than a minute of their lives. The doors closed. The car descended past 11, shuddered, and stopped with a metallic jolt. Clara's coffee struck the lid. My shoulder hit the mirrored wall. The main lights went out, leaving 1 second of darkness before the pale emergency strip buzzed on. I put down the sample case and pressed the call button. My first attempt produced only static. The second connected us to building security. A man introduced himself as Peter and asked whether either of us was injured. Clara checked her wrist where coffee had splashed. I checked the shoulder I had hit. No injuries, I answered. Peter told us the lift had stopped safely between floors. An engineer was coming, but storm traffic could delay him. We were to remain inside and keep away from the doors. I asked how long. Possibly an hour. Maybe longer. The answer entered my body before my thoughts. I thanked him in a voice steady enough to belong to someone else. When the intercom clicked off, my hand closed around the rail. The lift was still. My body disagreed. The air seemed to thin. My collar felt too tight. I loosened it, but that made no difference. I counted 1 breath, then another, then lost the number and began again. Clara set down her cup and folder. Jonah? I looked at her. She nodded toward the badge clipped to my jacket. That is your name, right? Yes. I'm Clara. Her voice remained level, but not falsely bright. Would it help if I came closer? I wanted to say no. I had spent 20 years arranging my life, so nobody had to see this. What came out was a nod. Clara sat several feet away, angled so I could see her without feeling watched. Can you sit? I'm fine. Her gaze moved to my hand locked around the rail. That was a very convincing performance. Under any other circumstances, I might have laughed. Instead, I slid down the wall until I was sitting opposite her. My fingers had started tingling. Clara lifted one of the release forms toward the vent. The corner trembled in the moving air. The ventilation is working, she said. Security knows where we are. The car has stopped. Those are facts. We can use facts. You do this often? Get trapped in lifts? Constantly. It is how I meet all my closest friends. A breath escaped me that was almost a laugh. She caught it. Good. Annoyance and sarcasm mean you're still in the room with me. Where else would I go? People can disappear a long way without moving. That sentence quieted me. Clara rested her hands loosely on her knees. Give me one true thing that isn't about being afraid. The lift has stopped moving. Good. The emergency light is still on. 2. Security knows exactly where we are. 3. One more. I looked at the vent, the doors, the dead floor display. Then I looked at her. She turned one hand upward on the carpet between us. She did not reach. She only made the choice available. Your hand is warm, I said. Her expression softened. Then take it. I did. Her fingers closed around mine without becoming restrained. She did not instruct me to breathe. She breathed slowly and let me choose whether to follow. I followed. Peter checked on us 10 minutes later. The engineer was still coming. When the intercom clicked off, Clara closed her eyes and pressed her lips together. One true thing, I said. Her eyes opened. You're frightened too. Yes. The honesty steadied me more than reassurance. She reached into her bag and produced 2 crushed ginger biscuits. Emergency provisions. Those look as if the emergency already happened to them. Do you want half or not? Our friendship may depend on it. We divided the biscuits, shared our water, and conserved our phone batteries. Clara asked what was inside my case. I showed her one of the sample lenses and explained how two lights could be equally bright while making a room feel completely different. So you professionally manipulate how people feel, she said. Only through approved fixtures. That sounds like the disclaimer of a very polite villain. What do you do? I ask strangers personal questions and preserve the answers. She was a documentary audio producer. Her studio, Room Tone, occupied part of the 12th floor. She and her business partner, Rena, were creating an oral history installation for the Bellwether Theater reopening. I stared at her. What? I'm designing the lighting for that installation. Clara stared back, then looked around the stalled car. Nadia's project meeting is Monday, 9:30, so we already had plans. This feels like an aggressive networking exercise. Bellwether takes collaboration seriously. We laughed harder than the joke deserved. It loosened something in my chest. After that, silence became possible. We moved shoulder to shoulder because the floor was cold. Clara released my hand to flex her fingers. A minute later, I rested mine between us, palm up. She looked at it. Still warm? She asked. I'm conducting quality control. She placed her hand in mine again. Somewhere past the hour mark, she told me why calmness came so easily to her. She had grown up in a loving but noisy family and become the person who translated everybody's anger into sentences the others could survive. When I'm frightened, I become extremely reasonable, she said. It's exhausting, actually, being the reasonable one. You don't have to be reasonable for me. At the moment, it is helping both of us. That isn't the same as having to. She turned her face toward me. For the first time since the lift stopped, she looked less composed than tired. One true thing, she murmured. I like that you noticed the difference. So I gave her a truth of my own. When I was 14, my 8-year-old sister Molly and I had been trapped in the lift of our childhood apartment building during a neighborhood blackout. We were inside for 40 minutes. Nobody was injured. No fire. No dramatic rescue. No reason for the memory to have ruled so much of my adult life. But I had panicked. Molly had sung every song she knew while I sat on the floor and tried not to be sick. Afterward, my parents praised me for staying with her, and I remembered only that the younger child had been braver. I have taken stairs ever since, I finished. Clara did not tell me I had secretly been heroic. She did not turn my fear into an inspirational lesson. You were 14, she said. You were frightened. Both things are allowed to be true. I washed our joined hands. You make that sound simple. Simple and easy are not the same thing. The engineer arrived after 81 minutes. The next 12 were filled with instructions through the intercom, metallic noises beyond the doors, and one brief movement of the car that made my hand tighten around Clara's. She tightened back. One true thing, she whispered. You're here. So are you. At 93 minutes, trained hands secured the car and opened the doors onto the 10th floor corridor. Clara stepped out first. Then she turned and waited. She did not reach back automatically. She gave me room to choose the final step on my own legs. I understood, even while shaking, that this was another kind of hand she was offering. I stepped out. Security checked us for injuries and offered to call medical help. Clara stood close enough that our sleeves brushed, but she did not answer for me once. When everyone left, we stood beside the closed doors with the knowledge that whatever had existed inside could disappear the moment one of us walked away. Clara adjusted the strap of her recorder bag. Thank you, I said. You kept me calm too. I complained about lighting for 20 minutes. Exactly. Very soothing. She took one step toward the stairs. Clara. She stopped. I owe you coffee. You don't owe me anything. Good. I forced myself not to look at the lift. Then this isn't repayment. I'd like to see you when neither of us is captive. Her eyes searched mine. Are you sure this isn't the adrenaline talking? No. But if you give me your number, I can ask again after the adrenaline has had a night to behave itself. The corner of her mouth lifted. She gave me her number. I took the stairs home. At 9:40 the next morning, I sent one message. How is your wrist? Her answer arrived before I could regret it. Still attached. How is your dignity? Under professional observation. 3 dots appeared, vanished, and returned. See you Monday, lighting designer. It was not a rejection. It was also not an invitation to turn 93 frightening minutes into destiny. I liked her more for knowing the difference. At Monday's meeting, Rena looked between us and understood more than Clara had told her. Small, sharp-eyed, and wearing headphones like jewelry, she called the lift Bellwether's introduction service. Clara closed her eyes until Nadia Brooks called the meeting to order. Nadia opened with an unwelcome fact. The lift controller and emergency call system would be replaced rather than patched, and the cost would come from the restoration contingency. When the electrical contractor added that several wall cavities had not yet been opened, Nadia wrote unknown beside the budget line and underlined it twice. At the time, none of us treated that as prophecy. For the first month, Clara and I were careful. Careful did not mean distant. It meant we spoke mostly in rooms where other people were present. It meant I sent her measurements rather than reasons to stay awake. It meant she did not use what she knew about my fear to create private intimacy I had not chosen. The work kept the lift from becoming a fantasy. Clara had interviews and hundreds of hours of audio to edit. I had contractors, electrical plans, safety inspections, and a client who wanted historical beauty without historical wiring. Our work overlapped enough for me to learn her in fragments. I watched Clara interview Sofia Alvarez, who had managed the Bellwether stage for 36 years. Sofia arrived in a red coat with an envelope of photographs and spent most of the interview telling funny stories about missed entrances and temperamental performers. Then Clara asked what Sofia remembered most clearly about the theater's final night. Sofia went quiet. The silence lasted long enough that I looked up from the light I was focusing. Clara did not repeat the question or rescue Sofia from the emotion. She waited with both hands folded beside the recorder. Finally, Sofia touched one of the photographs. My husband danced with me on the stage after everyone left, she said. He was the electrician. Terrible dancer. Good man. Her voice broke. Clara reached across the table, palm up. Sofia chose to take it. I looked away because some moments become kinder when nobody turns them into an audience. After Sofia left, I found Clara alone on stage packing cables. You're good at silence, I said. Only other people's. What happens in yours? She glanced at me. You ask a lot of questions for a lighting designer. Occupational hazard. Darkness encourages honesty. That was almost charming. Give me time. She smiled and handed me a cable. That smile followed me home. I did nothing about it. We disagreed for the first time over the lighting around her interviews. I wanted a narrow pool that separated each listener from the corridor. Clara said the darkness outside, it made the headphones feel like an interrogation. People are coming to remember a theater, she said, standing inside my test light. Not confess to a crime. You asked a retired carpenter where he was when the curtain rope broke. That was context. That was an alibi. She fought a smile. Widen the beam, Reed. I did. She was right. I disliked how attractive competence looked on her when it defeated me. At the end of the first month, a review meeting ran late enough that the bakery opposite Bellwether was stacking chairs when we arrived. Clara and I took the last table while Rena and Nadia left to catch trains in opposite directions. It was the first time we had been alone together outside the building since the lift. The first 4 minutes were awkward. We discussed the rain, the empty pastry case, and whether a meeting that ended after 9 still counted as work. Then the server placed coffee in front of her and tea in front of me. Clara stared at the cups. You ordered coffee, I said. I panicked. The man ahead of me ordered it. I pushed the tea toward her. You remembered. You mentioned it in the lift. Once. I noticed things. That is either attractive or alarming. Can it be both? That was when the awkwardness broke. We talked for nearly 2 hours, not about destiny, but about work, books, her habit of recording rain in unfamiliar cities, and my habit of mentally redesigning every lamp. After 11 years lighting other people's spaces, one bare bulb still hung above my dining table. That feels like a doctor refusing to take medicine, she said. It is a very expensive bare bulb. When we left, Clara waited beneath the awning while I opened my umbrella. For one uncertain second, the night felt like the end of a date neither of us had agreed to begin. She stepped back before I could misunderstand it. Good night, Jonah. Good night, Clara. We walked in opposite directions. During the second month, Caution became friendship before either of us admitted it was becoming something else. I kept taking the stairs. Clara never called it brave or foolish. Some evenings, she walked 3 or 4 flights with me before turning back toward room tone. We began timing how slowly we could climb without admitting we were delaying goodbye. The messages changed too. Measurements became photographs of terrible lamps. Schedule changes became voice notes about songs stuck in our heads. Once, she sent 14 seconds of rain against her studio window because she said it sounded different on the 7th floor. I listened through headphones while cooking and burned the onions. One Tuesday night, after she left me at the 8th floor landing, my phone chimed with another voice note. One true thing. I took the stairs because I wanted 6 more minutes with you. I stood beneath a humming fluorescent tube and listened twice. Then I recorded my answer. One true thing. I slowed down on the 7th floor landing and hoped you wouldn't notice. Her reply was immediate. I notice everything. That should have warned me. We still did not touch. The absence acquired a shape. I noticed every doorway where she stood near me without leaning closer. Every cable she passed without letting her fingers brush mine. Every goodbye that lasted 1 sentence longer than necessary. Clara noticed too. I knew because sometimes her eyes dropped to my hand and returned to my face. Neither of us acted on it. That restraint was not emptiness. It was the first proof that attraction could survive without being immediately fed. Near the end of the 2nd month, I made a mistake that had nothing to do with lifts or romance. I moved a recording monitor 6 inches because its cable crossed a lighting route. Clara arrived, saw the change, and moved it back. The room tone changes there, she said. The cable is a trip hazard. Then solve the cable. I was tired enough to hear criticism where she had given information. You could say thank you before rejecting every practical answer. Her expression cooled. You could ask before changing equipment you don't understand. We spent the next hour working in hostile politeness. The following morning, I returned with a floor cable cover and an apology. I was defensive, I said. You were. I dislike how quickly you accepted that. Would you prefer a transcript and 12 hours of reflective silence? 9. We laughed, and the small conflict did more for my trust than an evening of perfect agreement could have. By the 3rd month, I knew Clara became quiet when hungry and talked too quickly when nervous. She knew I hummed the same 4 notes while focusing lights and became formal when I felt hurt. I knew she kept ginger biscuits in every bag but rarely ate them before they broke. She knew I phoned Molly every Sunday and lied about whether I had enough chairs for visitors. Knowing these things was more dangerous than the lift had been. The lift had shown me how Clara behaved in an emergency. Ordinary weeks showed me who she was when nobody required her to be remarkable. The first deliberate touch outside the lift happened during a late edit session in Clara's studio. She was testing how Sophia's interview sounded beneath the soft mechanical ambience of the old theater. I sat beside her at the mixing desk, wearing headphones, while Sophia's younger voice emerged from an archive recording and dissolved into the older voice Clara had captured. Then the building lights flickered. My body went still before my mind caught up. Clara removed one side of her headphones. Hand or space? The question reached me cleanly. No assumption. No shame. Hand. She took mine beneath the desk. The lights steadied after 3 seconds. Her thumb moved once across my knuckles. Neither of us let go. One true thing, she said softly. I'm not holding your hand because of the lights anymore. My pulse changed for an entirely different reason. Neither am I. Her gaze dropped briefly to my mouth. I wanted to kiss her. Wanting did not make the moment ready. I turned our joined hands over and traced my thumb once along her knuckles. Clara drew a slow breath. Then she looked back at the screen. We finished the edit still holding hands. Afterward, I walked home alone and understood that almost could be its own kind of intimacy. 2 weeks later, near the end of the 3rd month, I asked Clara to dinner. I did not disguise it as repayment, work, or concern. A date, I said. Only if you want one. Clara studied me long enough to make honesty feel like standing in an open doorway. Yes, she said, but slowly. Our first proper date was modest on purpose. Dinner at a crowded family restaurant, a walk beneath one umbrella, and hot chocolate under the Bellwether marquee while rain silvered the empty street. We disagreed about restoration. I thought an old building should show its scars. Clara thought some damage deserved privacy. Not everything healed needs to remain on display, she said. Hiding it can make the history dishonest, or it can let the room become more than the worst thing that happened to it. I looked at her over the rim of my cup. We're no longer discussing plaster. We were never discussing plaster. At her building, the rain had softened to mist. We stopped beneath the narrow awning. Clara's face was close, her hand tucked around my arm for warmth. I want to kiss you, I told her. Her eyes dropped to my mouth before returning. I want that too. I waited. But not tonight. I was disappointed, but I did not make the feeling her burden. Okay. I need to know I'm choosing you outside the strangest thing that has ever happened to us. So do I. Her shoulders loosened. She touched her forehead briefly to mine. That was all. I walked home feeling that not taking something had given us more. Our second date happened 2 weeks later. Clara bought a 1952 theater program because it advertised scientifically cooled air. I called it air conditioning. She accused me of killing wonder, then slipped her hand into mine and announced that I had recovered. We still did not kiss. At her door, she said, "This is becoming unreasonable. Your rule. I dislike how respectfully you follow it. That sounds difficult for you." She smiled, squeezed my hand, and went inside. By then, wanting had stopped being a question. Timing remained one. At the end of the 4th month, Clara was testing an archival dance recording in the empty theater while I focused a warm circle of light on the bare stage. The old recording came through with a faint hiss, trumpet, piano, brushed drums. Clara climbed the steps to the stage and held out her hand. "We should test whether the music feels alive from here. That is scientifically weak. Dance with me, Reed." I stepped into the light. She put one hand in mine and the other on my shoulder. My palms settled at her waist. We moved carefully at first, both of us pretending this was still part of the sound check. It stopped being work when Clara moved closer. She fit against me with disarming ease, her breath at my collar and her thumb against my neck. The recording ended, but neither of us moved. "For months," she whispered. I noticed. "Are you asking because we were trapped together?" "No." "Because I held your hand?" "No." "Then why?" "Because I know how you take your tea. Because you fight with file names and apologize to recording equipment when you drop it. Because you were wrong about the interrogation lighting and eventually admitted it." "I did not admit that." "Because we can disagree and come back the next morning. Because I want you on ordinary days." Her expression changed. "And because we're not trapped now," I continued. "Either of us can leave." Her eyes held mine. "Then ask. Can I kiss you?" "Yes." Our first kiss was softer than 4 months of wanting should have allowed. Her lips touched mine and paused, leaving one final moment for either answer to change. I kissed her again. Clara's fingers slid into my hair. I drew her closer at the waist. She smiled when my nose brushed hers, then kissed every clever sentence from my mind. When we separated, her forehead rested against mine. "I have forgotten how language works," she said. "That is not very promising for our communication. Give me a minute." She laughed against my mouth, and I kissed her once more. The kiss belonged to an open room either of us could leave. We did not become reckless after that. We became affectionate. There is a difference. During the 5th month, affection settled into ordinary places. While I made soup, Clara sat on my kitchen counter and read interview questions as if every retired technician were a criminal suspect. "Where were you on the night the curtain rope broke?" she demanded. "Please stop interrogating the stagehands. Answer the question." When I reached for the pepper, she slid down and wrapped both arms around me from behind. "You've gone quiet," she said. "I'm adjusting to being ambushed. Do you want me to move?" I covered her hands with mine. "No." She stayed while I stirred with one hand and held her with the other. Another night, Clara criticized a renovation program for 20 minutes, then fell asleep with her head on my chest. I left the next episode playing and traced slow circles along her forearm. Peace frightened me in a way emergencies did not. Emergencies gave me a task. Peace asked whether I could remain when nobody needed saving. I remained. At midnight, Clara woke, noticed my numb arm, and kissed beneath my jaw. Thank it for its service. When I brought lunch to room tone the next afternoon, Clara admitted she needed 2 hours without anyone speaking to her. I left the food and went. Her evening voice note thanked me for listening. Mine requested sandwich credit. She denied it. 2 days later, I arrived with revised floor plans and found Clara and Rena facing each other across the mixing desk. We agreed I would take the Calder and sing interviews, Rena said. They were already half-edited. Because you started them after we agreed. Clara noticed me in the doorway. Do not make him the referee. I wasn't going to. Rena placed 3 transcript folders on the desk. Choose 2. Clara stared at them. The room stayed quiet long enough for me to feel how badly she wanted to prove she could carry everything. Finally, she pushed all 3 across the desk. Rena's expression softened. All 3. Take them before I become unreasonable. Rena gathered the folders without celebrating. That kindness made Clara look away. On the pavement afterward, she admitted, I hated that. Handing over the work? Needing her to be right. She looked relieved, not victorious. Clara sighed. That was worse. By the middle of the 5th month, Clara had met Molly. My sister chose a restaurant with no lift, hugged Clara before I removed my coat, and informed her that I had described her voice for separate times. Dinner was easy until Clara asked whether Molly still sang. Molly glanced at me. He told you about the blackout? Some of it. I nodded, allowing her to continue. I sang because I was 8 and knew 6 songs. Jonah asked me questions between them, so I would keep talking. He was panicking, but he never stopped making sure I was all right. Outside the restaurant, Clara slipped her hand into mine. Why didn't you tell me that part? It didn't fit the version where fear meant failure. We walked half a block before I admitted that I did not want every closed door to become her responsibility. Good. The relief on her face stung and helped at the same time. I'll hold your hand when you ask, Jonah, but I can't be the only reason you can step into a lift. I wouldn't know how to carry that. I don't want you to. The following week, I booked an appointment with a therapist who treated panic and claustrophobia. I did not ask Clara to find one. I did not announce it as proof that I deserved her. I told her afterward because I wanted honesty. She stood between my knees where I sat at the edge of her sofa, placed both hands around my face, and kissed my temple. I'm glad you're doing that for yourself. One true thing. I'm terrified. That sounds reasonable. You're a bad influence. She kissed my other temple. I contain multitudes. Clara's family called during dinner a few nights later. Her father and brother were arguing about repairs, and each wanted her to translate the other into a kinder person. For 15 minutes, her voice became professionally calm. When the call ended, she remained facing the glass. My instinct produced 6 possible solutions. I kept every one of them inside my mouth. Do you want me to say something? I asked, or stay quiet? Clara turned, close to tears. Just be beside me, she said. I stood beside her, one arm around her waist, while she rested her head on my shoulder. I don't know how to stop being useful to them, she whispered. Neither do I. She looked up. That may be the least reassuring thing you've ever said. But it's true. Unhelpful, but true, she agreed. Her own unraveling came late in the 6th month. A storage drive failed during an export and took several hours of edited audio with it. Rena had a complete backup, so the project was safe, but relief arrived too late to stop the exhaustion already moving through Clara. I found her on the studio floor beside the desk. She stared at the failed drive as if it had personally betrayed her. Rena says the backup is clean, I said. I know. Nothing is permanently lost. I know. I heard myself trying to make the facts remove the feeling. I stopped. I'm doing it again. She looked up. Doing what? Trying to make the facts cancel how you feel. Do you want me to fix something, leave, or hold you? Clara's face folded. Hold me first. I sat on the floor and opened my arms. She moved into them quickly. I held her, one palm between her shoulder blades and the other at the back of her head, while she cried against my shirt. I'm so tired, she said. I know. No. You noticed. That isn't the same as me telling you. Then tell me. Her fingers closed in the fabric at my back. I'm tired. I'm angry. I don't want to be reasonable about a stupid piece of equipment. And I don't want you to tell me it could be worse. I won't. Just hold me. I did. Later, when comfort had done its work, Rena joined us with takeaway cartons. The 3 of us rebuilt the editing schedule. Clara handed 2 interviews to Rena without apologizing for needing help. That mattered as much as anything I did. Our first night together came near the end of the 6th month, on an evening with no emergency attached. We cooked beneath the expensive bare bulb, argued about music, washed the dishes, and stood too close at the sink. She flicked water at me. That was childish. You corrected the way I loaded a plate. There is a correct way. You deserve what happens next. She reached for the tap. I caught her around the waist before she could soak me. Clara laughed and twisted in my arms until she was facing me. The laughter faded, but the warmth stayed. Her hands rested against my chest. "Hello," she whispered. "Hello." I kissed her beneath the unforgiving light. The playful kiss deepened as her arms circled my neck and my hands settled at her waist. When she drew me closer, wanting moved through me hard enough to become frightening. I eased back. "Do you want me to stop?" "No." "Are you sure?" She placed one hand over my heart. "You keep asking as if wanting me is something you need to apologize for." I met her eyes. "Ask once," she said. "Then listen to me. Do you want to stay with me tonight?" "Yes." Her answer did not waver. In the bedroom, we slowed down. I kissed her forehead, her mouth, and the warm place beneath her ear. She touched me without hesitation or hurry. When we crossed that final distance, it was because we had spent 6 months choosing smaller distances first. Later, Clara lay with her cheek over my heart and one leg tangled with mine. I traced my thumb along the inside of her wrist. "One true thing," she murmured, already half asleep. "Go on. Your bed is much more comfortable than your sofa. I have been saving it for a special occasion." She pinched my side. "Fine," I amended. "I'm very happy you're here." Her arm tightened around my waist. Me too. The first time I told her I loved her, nothing dramatic was happening. 3 weeks later, during the 7th month, I woke on her sofa while Clara labeled audio files on the floor. One hand rested absently over my ankle beneath the blanket. I had spent years imagining love would announce itself through certainty. Instead, it arrived while Clara argued with a file name and touched me without checking whether I was still there. "One true thing," I said. She looked up. "I love you." The room became still. Clara did not answer automatically. She closed the laptop, moved onto the sofa beside me, and touched my face. "Say it again." "I love you." Her eyes filled. "One true thing," she whispered. "I love you too. Even when neither of us is useful." I kissed her slowly. For a while, that truth felt large enough to hold everything. We said the words during the 7th month. Looking back, I had only named what was happening. The remaining 2 months before Bellwether opened, and much of what came afterward, would teach me what the word required. At the beginning of the 8th month, Bellwether reminded us that love does not cancel invoices. Nadia called an emergency meeting in the theater office. Rena arrived with 2 laptops. Clara carried a notebook full of final edit timings. I brought the revised lighting schedule. Nobody opened any of them. Nadia stood at the end of the table with the expression she wore when the truth was expensive. Once the walls were opened, inspectors found electrical distribution that had to be replaced before the public could enter. The theater could still open safely and on schedule, but the repair consumed nearly all its contingency. "We have to reduce the exhibition corridor," Nadia said. "Not cancel it. Reduce it." Clara's 8 stations required custom cabinetry, players, headphones, and wiring. My separate pools of light guided visitors through each story. Together, our work contained most of the costs still changeable. Nadia gave us 48 hours to produce options. She wanted one plan from both of us. The 4 of us spent the rest of the afternoon trying to make one. Clara marked interviews that could not survive as short extracts. I priced fewer units. Rena counted room tones remaining hours. I tested several stories beneath one pool of light. Every saving damaged something somebody had promised. At 6, Rena turned her laptop so Clara could see the schedule. "We have 96 paid hours left," she said. "I can tighten the edits." "We can," Rena corrected. "And 96 still means 96. Clara rubbed both hands over her face. Nadia ended the meeting before exhaustion began making decisions for us. "Come back at 9 tomorrow. Bring options. Do not bring private acts of heroism." We all agreed. That promise lasted less than 3 hours. My supplier called at 8:40. The custom fixtures were due to enter fabrication at noon. Approving them meant paying in full. Pausing them would preserve most of the deposit and hold our production slot for 5 working days. I could have called Clara. Instead, I paused fabrication, worked past midnight replacing the fixtures with standard track lights, and offered to absorb the redesign time. I labeled the document Option B, as if a cautious file name changed what I was recommending, and sent it to Nadia without copying Clara. Clara made a different mistake. She restructured 8 stations into 4, carrying several voices each. Hardware costs fell, but editing grew by 74 hours. After Rena had said those hours did not exist, Clara entered them as a studio contribution and sent Nadia the schedule without copying Rena. Her plan was not about preserving my lighting. She could not bear to decide which voices would disappear from the room. At 9 the next morning, Nadia opened both files on the wall screen. Rena read the column marked internal contribution and went very still. Where did you find 74 hours? Clara looked at the table. I thought I could cover most of them. At night. If necessary. You do not get to donate my business because you are frightened of disappointing people. Across the table, Clara saw the rendering of my standard track lights. You paused fabrication? She asked. There was a deadline. There was also a telephone. Nadia closed both documents. Some pieces of these options may be useful. Neither option is acceptable as submitted. One assumes Jonah can erase his design and work without pay. The other assumes Room Tone can manufacture 74 hours. More importantly, neither was made by the team I asked to make it. No one defended us. Take the afternoon, Nadia said. The supplier remains on a 5-day hold. We meet again when all 4 people at this table have agreed to the numbers. Clara walked out before I could reach her. I found her on the theater stage, standing beyond the work lights with both arms folded around herself. Clara, you turned the corridor into ordinary track lighting because I looked worried. I priced an alternative. I did not approve it. You recommended it, paused the order, and forgot my phone number. The supplier gave me 3 hours. You needed 3 minutes. I had no honest answer to that. And you found 74 hours after Rena told you there were none. Clara's jaw tightened. I know. You were going to work them yourself. Probably. That is not a plan. No. It was panic with a timetable. The admission should have softened me. Instead, I held on to my anger because hers made me feel accused. I walked closer, then stopped several feet away. The distance felt deliberate. Painful, but necessary. I was trying to protect what you built. I asked you not to let the lift decide our pace, she said. I should have asked you not to let it decide my work. I could have apologized then. Instead, I reached for the part of her that I knew would hurt. You don't tell people what you need, Clara. You say you're fine until we believe you. Then act betrayed because nobody read the footnotes. The theater seemed to hold the sentence after I had finished speaking. Clara looked as if I had struck something she had trusted me not to touch. Regret came immediately. That was cruel, I said. Yes. And partly true. You chose the cruelest way to make it true. Her eyes filled, but she did not look away. Sometimes, she said, her voice unsteady, I think you would rather be needed than loved. That isn't fair. Neither was what you just said. That found the wound beneath both of us. I had fallen for the woman who offered me a choice, then tried to make myself impossible to leave by controlling the cost. Clara had hidden her needs until even love had to guess. Both of us had made private sacrifices before anyone could object. Mine controlled her choice. Hers made other people pay for her inability to disappoint anyone. From a distance, both could be mistaken for devotion. Up close, they were fear with excellent manners. Clara wiped beneath one eye. I need until Friday. Every instinct in me resisted. That is 3 days. I know. Are you ending us? No, her voice shook. But I can't talk to you without either apologizing too quickly or saying something worse. Please don't contact me personally until Friday. I wanted to close the distance, hold her, and make the fear stop. That would have been another decision made for both of us. Okay. The relief in her face hurt more than refusal would have. She left by the side aisle. I remained on stage beneath a light I had designed and felt unable to see anything clearly. The next 3 days were quietly awful. I reached for my phone and sent nothing. At therapy, I described the sacrifice as if it counted in my favor. My therapist asked why Clara's work had become mine to save. I had no answer that did not sound like control. I withdrew the proposal that afternoon. I told Nadia I would not change Clara's scope, my own fee, or the balance between our contracts without Clara and Rena present. Then I called Molly and asked what she had needed from me during our childhood blackout. Not for you to make me stop being frightened, she answered. I needed you to stay until the doors opened. The distinction was so simple that I hated how long it had taken me to understand it. Clara spent the same 3 days with Rena. I learned later that she apologized, showed Rena her real schedule, and delegated several edits. She also told her family to resolve their argument without using her as translator. Our voice note thread stayed silent until Thursday night. At 9:17, I recorded one message. One true thing. I told myself I was helping, but I made a decision that belonged to both of us. I'm sorry. I love you. You don't owe me an answer tonight. I put the phone face down. Her reply came the next morning. One true thing. I kept saying I was fine and expected you to hear that I wasn't. That wasn't fair. Meet me on the stage at 7. I arrived 20 minutes early and waited in the front row so she would not enter to find me occupying the center of the stage. At 7 exactly, Clara came through the side doors. She wore jeans, an old green jumper, and no careful expression. She looked tired. She looked frightened. She looked like the whole woman I had claimed to want. I stood. Would you rather sit? The stage. We walked there separately and stopped beneath the plain white work lights. Nothing was dressed up to help us. I told myself it was only an option. I began. It wasn't. I wanted the answer settled before you could choose something that frightened me. Clara said nothing. And what I said about you being fine, I knew where it would hurt. I said it because I was angry. My throat tightened. I'm sorry. It did hurt. I know. No. You know now. Her voice remained quiet. I need you to remember it the next time we're angry. I will try. She nodded, then looked down at her hands. Rena had already told me no, she said. I turned that no into 74 imaginary hours because disappointing people felt worse than exhausting myself. And I wanted you to notice I was overwhelmed without making me admit it. Then I guessed wrong. Then you guessed for me. She looked up. Those are different mistakes. Both real. Yes. She drew a breath that shook on the way out. I don't know how to give people the unfinished version of what I feel. Give me the bad draft. It may be ugly. I work in restoration. Clara stared at me. That was terrible. I panicked. Her laugh was small, but it was the first opening either of us had offered. She looked at me for a long moment. What do you want, Jonah? It was a fair question. For once, I did not answer with what I could provide. I want you. Not only the calm version. And I want to believe you can love me on days when I don't solve anything. I swallowed. I don't know how to do that yet. Her mouth trembled. I want a smaller installation we can actually afford. I want Rena paid. And I want us, if you can ask what I choose before you protect me from it. I can learn. So can I. No more private heroics, she said. Agreed. If I say I'm fine and you don't believe me, I ask once more. And if I still say I'm fine, I believe the answer you gave me, even if you regret it later. She nodded slowly. And if you offer help, you can say no without taking care of my feelings. That one will be hard for you. They will all be hard. Only then did Clara cross the distance. She came into my arms hard enough that I took one step backward. I held her at the waist. Her face pressed into my neck, and her hands spread across my back as if confirming I was real. We did not kiss immediately. We stood beneath the work lights and held each other while the last 3 days left our bodies. One true thing, she whispered against my skin. I missed you. My throat tightened. I missed you too. She lifted her face. May I kiss you, please? The kiss was not an eraser, only the first choice we made after telling the whole truth. Once we stopped trying to save the project alone, the practical solution took one long afternoon. Rena and Clara reduced 8 listening stations to 4. Each held several voices through a simple chaptered menu rather than the elaborate new edits that had created 74 extra hours. Rena called the public radio archive where she had once freelanced. For listening units were sitting between exhibitions and could be loaned in exchange for access to the completed interviews. We released 6 custom fixtures before fabrication and kept 2 as visual anchors at the corridor entrance and exit. I used hired track lighting between them. The theater workshop turned old seats and stored timber into the listening alcoves. The complete archive went online, so no interview vanished merely because the physical installation became smaller. The result cost less. It was not magically better because difficulty had improved us. Fewer people could listen at once, and several transitions were less elegant than Clara wanted. But every story remained. Everybody's labor was paid, and every compromise had been chosen in the same room. Opening night arrived at the end of the 9th month. The Bellwether sign burned gold above a rain-bright street. Former performers, technicians, families, and neighbors filled the lobby beneath light once confined to my screen. Clara wore a dark red dress and silver earrings. I saw her from across the crowd and forgot the sentence Nadia was saying to me. Clara caught my eye. Her smile changed. It belonged to the woman who had slept on my chest, cried on a studio floor, argued beneath work lights, and come back. I crossed the lobby. "You're staring," she said. "Professional assessment." "Of what?" "Color temperature." And I placed one hand lightly at her waist. "Perfect." She rolled her eyes, but color rose into her cheeks. In the first alcove, Sophia heard the restored recording of Bellwether's final night. Her younger voice came through the headphones, laughing at something her husband had said. Sophia pressed both hands to her mouth. Clara stood nearby, but did not turn the moment into her own success. She let Sophia listen. When one of the other stations briefly lost sound, Rena opened the panel and fixed a loose connection. Clara took one instinctive step toward her, then stopped. Rena looked up. "I have it." Clara nodded. "I know." Those two words held their own quiet victory. The repaired lift had passed inspection. With my therapist, I had completed several short rides without Clara. She was neither my exposure exercise nor my only safety mechanism. Before the public auditorium doors opened, we stood together in the lobby. Clara pointed toward the lift, then toward the stairs. "Which one do you want?" I listened to my body before answering. Fear was present, but it was no longer the only voice in the room. The lift. 1 floor. "Do you need my hand?" I considered the question. "I don't need you to make the fear disappear." I held out my hand. "I want yours because I love you." Clara placed her fingers in mine. We entered. I pressed the button myself. The doors closed. My palm became damp. My heartbeat rose. "One true thing," I said. "I am afraid." "One true thing," Clara answered. "So am I." The lift rose 1 floor. No jolt. No darkness. Only the ordinary mechanical hum of a machine doing its job. The doors opened. We stepped out before either of us reached for a kiss. Then Clara turned, put both hands around my face, and kissed me in the open corridor. She did not congratulate me. I did not pretend I was cured. We went downstairs by the stairs because that was what I wanted next. Later, after the guests had gone, we sat in the theater's upper balcony. Clara rested her head on my shoulder. My arms circled her waist beneath my jacket. Timber creaked. Rain tapped the roof, and beyond the wall the lift traveled smoothly between floors. "One true thing," Clara said. "This is smaller than we imagined. One true thing. It is ours because we chose it together." She lifted her head. "The project is ours." I was being poetic. You became possessive in the middle. "You are never going to let me be poetic without supervision, are you?" "Absolutely not." Then she kissed me, not because I had survived anything and not because she needed comfort. She kissed me because she wanted to. 18 months after Bellwether reopened, our lives looked different. Room Tone had hired another producer. Clara still recorded people's stories, but delegated before exhaustion decided for her. She stopped translating every family disagreement. Her father and brother discovered that direct conversation was unpleasant but survivable. I remained in therapy. Some days I used lifts. Some days I took the stairs. Neither choice counted as a victory or failure. Fear had become information rather than an order. We shared a second-floor flat with 2 routes to the street. Her headphones lived on my drawing table, my jumpers on her studio chair, and the expensive bare bulb finally lost Clara's hard-fought public safety campaign. Growth did not make us graceful. I once booked an electrician across Clara's recording session. She once canceled dinner with Molly because I looked tired. We had the old argument in smaller clothes, corrected both mistakes, and ate midnight toast after admitting we had done it again. We kept sending voice notes about forgotten groceries, needed quiet, imperfect apologies, and ordinary love. They were not always romantic. That was why they mattered. After a late oral history event at Bellwether, I asked Clara to meet me in the lobby when the final guests had left. She arrived carrying her shoes in one hand. "The roof?" she asked. The roof. This feels suspiciously organized. I am an organized person. You once labeled a drawer miscellaneous cables by probable emotional importance. And I found the cable I needed. We stepped into the lift. I was nervous. I told her. She took my hand because I asked, not because she assumed. The car rose to the top floor and opened onto the roof garden without ceremony. Rain had stopped. The city shone beyond the low wall. Below us, the Bellwether sign cast warm gold across the wet street. Clara stepped out first, turned back, and held out her hand. I took it and joined her. Only when both of us stood clear of the doors did I reach into my coat. Clara saw the ring box and covered her mouth. The first time those doors opened, I told her, I was terrified I would never see you again. Her eyes filled. This time I know better. I get to ask, and you get to choose. I lowered myself onto one knee. Clara Bennett, will you? Yes. I stared up at her. She laughed through her tears. Sorry. I had a complete sentence prepared. I know. I practiced it. I know. Will you let me finish? Clara nodded and pressed both hands over her mouth. Will you marry me? She lowered her hands. Yes, Jonah. I will marry you. I stood. She wrapped both arms around my neck and kissed me beneath the theater sign I had helped relight. She held me so closely that the ring remained forgotten in its box for another minute. When she finally loosened her arms, I placed it on her finger. Nothing about it felt like rescue. It felt like a choice we had learned how to keep making. The first time Clara held my hand, the doors would not open. The night she agreed to marry me, they opened before I finished asking. She stepped out first, turned back, and held out her hand. I took it. That was the difference between being trapped and being chosen.